a leading international consultancy services provider, a global network of professional firms spanning across 148 countries and with more than 130,000 professionals on board. This is a company that's been known for its credibility. So earlier this week, when the Mumbai police arrested Vikram Uttam Singh, partner and head of finance's India chapter, on charges of alleged sexual harassment, it obviously left corporate India stunned. The arrest was made based on 2 complaints from chartered accountant and former director Meenakshi Maheshwari, who approached the Mumbai police on July 16th with serious allegations against her seniors. The first complaint was against 4 senior partners who allegedly had passed lewd comments and asked for sexual favors through emails. Some of them sent using a company-provided BlackBerry. The second complaint was against the CEO, the human resource head (COO), and another senior manager for not taking any measures against the alleged accused. We tried getting to the heart of the matter and spoke to the lady in question, Meenakshi Maheshwari.
The email which has suddenly become the focus of everyone's attention, I need to clarify, was the starting point of what I would call is e-sexual harassment. And it had come to me on 14th October 2005 from a junior of mine, which was marked to 2 of the partners and 2 other junior colleagues. It had 3 men urinating in the toilet, helping each other with their holding private parts. So I can't describe anything further than this. And why I say it is the starting point is because when I raised an objection to that, what followed was even more shocking, because though the KPMG staff manual prescribes that, what is objectionable behavior and what are part of the service rules, I don't think they took any action to reprimand such behavior. Rather, I was made to feel that my raising objection is not right, and the person who had sent it was promoted and sent on secondment to London. I did raise an objection, but to my surprise what followed was another very, I can only say a very funny email from my immediate boss to say, "Gents and ladies," and in bracket it says, "We have been reminded such a gender exists too." I have spoken to the people as per the policy, and I left it to the organization to take notice and resolve the issue.
Meenakshi is learning to live with the embarrassment and taking each day at a time. But while the person alleged with this crime, Vikram Uttam Singh, is out on bail today, there is, apart from harassment charges, another charge that is equally worrying. How much of this story is true? How accurate are the methods of verification? And in case of a fabrication, who bears the consequences?
I don't think there's any law in the country that's not misused. Okay, every law is misused, so that does not mean that one does not have a law. But yes, it is case specific.
For today's working woman, life is not just about boardroom meetings and homemaking skills. She's out there challenging men in every sphere and playing out indisputable leadership roles. The tables have turned today. In fact, they turned a considerable while ago. But what is really sad is the complete lack of knowledge that both men and women have on issues such as sexual harassment at the workplace. Really, how many of us even know that after the 1997 Bhanwari Devi rape case, the Supreme Court of India recognized sexual harassment not only as a personal injury, but a complete violation of fundamental rights.
Sometimes the cost of harassment can get too heavy to pay, and we also mean that literally. In May 2003, when Phaneesh Murthy, director on board of Infosys Technologies Limited and the then highest paid Infosys executive, was accused for wrongful termination and sexual harassment of a female employee, he paid the price for it, and a pretty big one too. Phaneesh Murthy had to shell out about $3 million to Ms. Rekha Maximovich in an out-of-court settlement, and the lawsuit filed against him ultimately led to his resignation. Although Murthy cited pursuing a successful defense of the lawsuit as the sole reason for his resignation.
There is no formula which says, okay, at this point you will say this is sexual harassment and this point that it is not. Each one to his own or her own actually. And each of us know when we are being violated, when we feel violated. My reaction when any woman has the gall, not the gall, but the guts to stand up to a man and say, look guys, lay off or I'm going to take this further, is of great admiration. Very few women do this simply because there are so many other factors to think about.
The Vishaka Guidelines puts down the rules clearly and unequivocally. It is mandatory for every company to have a complaints committee headed by a woman. Half the committee should also be women, and it should have a third-party representation, whether an NGO or an agency that specialized in the welfare of women. Whether all companies follow these guidelines, however, is a different matter altogether.
The Vishaka guidelines, any office, any organization, any company is supposed to have a sexual harassment redressal committee. Okay, now you need not wait for a complaint to actually be filed or to be brought to your notice. Per se, because you exist and because you have women working within your organization, you're supposed to have a sexual harassment redressal committee.
Sexual harassment for the longest time, known merely as office flirtation or eve teasing, is a serious offense, and the repercussions can be so serious that it could practically ruin lives. So if you're clueless as to what qualifies as sexual harassment, the chances of you falling prey are only higher.
So what constitutes sexual harassment? In most company policies, sexual harassment against women and men is considered a breach in terms of employment and a crime, in addition to violation of gender equality guaranteed under the Constitution. And any violation of the company policy could lead to termination of employment. Sounds complicated? Well, it is. And it is important to read all the fine print very closely. You could be accused of sexually harassing your colleague on the following grounds: physical contacts and advances, coercing a subordinate to provide sexual favors by promising pay increases or an easier work life, sexually colored remarks made in person or over telephone, email, and the like, showing pornography, questioning an employee's sex life, making gender-based insults or sexist remarks, cracking jokes that are likely to cause awkwardness or embarrassment, passing innuendos, taunts, and unsavory remarks, any other unwelcome physical, verbal, or non-verbal conduct of sexual nature.
There are two kinds of sexual harassment at the workplace. One would be the more subtle environmental kind of harassment, which is having to work in an offensive environment. It could be things like off-color jokes or graffiti on the walls or pictures, email. The other is the quid pro quo kind of harassment, which is a clear, I will do something for you only if you give me or grant me a sexual favor, something like a promotion, or I will block your transfer if you don't give me what I want. And this is the more dangerous kind.
But in case of a proven instance of sexual harassment at work, there should be no hesitation in booking the guilty, only because the victim of this crime is thrice assaulted, the first by the accused, secondly by the stigma that is associated with the phrase sexual harassment, and the third, of course, the mental scar that never really leaves you, how much ever you may try to shrug it off.
Okay. My message to the working women in similar situation is that if you think there is merit in your case and if you think you're right, you should fight with conviction and courage. Regardless, I mean, even when I was fighting my case, I was quite unfazed by what the outcome will be.
Why should a woman have to go through this whole, rigmarole? There are other ways of dealing with this. There are other ways of dealing with men who with whom you want to get even, if at all you want to get even. But I do not buy this whole thing about women who, trying to put a sexual harassment charge against a man just for vindication. I don't buy that at all.
Well, sexual harassment does not end here. It's not just about men making lewd propositions to women. It's also when your gender comes before anything else. When you didn't get that raise you so deserved just because you're a woman, More on that just after this short break.
Do we wait for us to be raped or something like that and then say that it is sexual harassment?
Sexual harassment at work is not a new phenomenon. In fact, it is one of the many challenges that a woman tends to face. Sometimes it can even take an ugly turn and ruin your entire professional career for no fault of yours. The reason? Unreasonable gender bias.
Dr. Manisha Sen has been lecturer of psychology with Mumbai University for the last 25 years. When she decided to take up a 13-month contract with the AIDS Research Society, she wasn't prepared for what lay ahead. To her absolute horror, she was sexually harassed by her immediate boss from the very first week. No action was taken despite her repeated complaints, and if that wasn't enough, she was fired on grounds of financial impropriety.
Meenakshi Maheshwari's case is not very different from that of Dr. Manisha Sen's. Both educated, career-minded and ambitious women, and both who have faced sexual harassment at their workplace. And today, it has left them with nothing but shame for the system, and in the case of Dr. Sen, an incident she's not willing to end her 25-year-old career with.
It was the worst moment of my life. I have been diagnosed for cancer, but I think it was not so bad as this was. It was a case of sexual harassment and work harassment both together. And the consequences are bad, I think. That's what makes it worse. Because it appears to me that sometimes you lose on all counts. You lose psychologically, you lose, maybe even in your relations, interpersonal relationships get affected. And though we fight it, we try and fight it when we stand up against this kind of treatment, but it does leave its patch and it's not easy. Everybody looks at you in a different manner. People start thinking that, oh, you must have done something to bring it on, that kind. That's one group which says that. There's another group which says that, maybe she should have waited to see that something worse could have happened and then revolted. Do we wait for us to be raped or something like that and then say that it is sexual harassment? It had no consequences for that person. And if it had no consequences for that person, it means the entire system was with that person.
First initial reactions of everybody is to say, oh, she's making a mountain of a molehill, or she's lying about it, or she's being vindictive for something else that she has said. So the first initial trial of this woman, of her character, is done at that stage itself. There is no section for sexual harassment itself. It will come under section 354, 509, which talks about outraging a woman's modesty.
Gender bias is a phrase that sounds absurd in today's times, but it still continues to rear its ugly head from time to time. There are enough instances around us that prove it is still very much rampant.
She first shot into the limelight in 1972 when she was the first woman to be inducted into the Indian Police Service. In the years that followed, she has gained recognition for herself not just for her gutsy and bold decisions, but also because she has won a number of awards, including the President's Gallantry Award and what is often called the Indian version of the Nobel Prize, the Magsaysay Award. And yet, here we are talking to her about gender bias at work. What could be more ironic? This whole controversy that happened with the appointment of the Delhi's Commissioner of Police, you have gone on record to say that you were overlooked for the post.
In police hierarchy or in any organization like mine, seniority is a very important factor. And that's the basis on which some objectivity is offered to the service. And it's seniority and merit. So in my case, undoubtedly I'm a 1972 batch and the current officer is a 1974 batch. So I was 2 years ahead. Secondly, he was empaneled for a Director General's post, and yet to be assuming a post of a Director General of Police, I was already holding a post. Delhi Police was a part of my cadre, and it's a normal aspiration of anybody of one's own cadre to one day meritoriously lead one's own service. So I was truly looking forward to one day leading my own service. There are pluses and minuses of being a man and a woman. I have certain advantages of being a woman, the kind of acceptability, the kind of trust one gets as a woman is amazing in this country. Just as one gets the kind of ignorance and you can be sidelined completely, also as a woman is a factor. So I think when it comes to the crunch, choosing a man is still a safer proposition.
Give the woman a soft posting so that years later you can just hold that against her and say, hello, you haven't really worked as hard as, or haven't done as challenging postings as, say, the other men have.
That's true, because all along as the woman is developing her career, she's not choosing her postings. She can only choose to do what she does with what she gets. So she's only doing with what she gets, but she doesn't decide on what she gets. So many times she's placed on the margins as considered, whereas nothing is on the margin if you ask me. If anything was redundant, anything was not required, why should it be there as a posting?
Talking about sexual harassment specifically, there have been instances of sexual harassment even in MNCs. Something happened in Mumbai recently also. What is your take on sexual harassment? Where do you think, one should sort of say that, okay, this much and no more?
There is no line. You don't even begin. In fact, the first sign of it must be spotted and seen, and it must be halted right there. Otherwise, it's like having an elastic rope. You stretch it as far as you can, and it has bound to break sometime.
So what is the advice then that you would give to a woman who faces gender bias or sexual harassment at work? The two are very different things, of course.
I must say that there are certain positions you may not have a right to, legal right to. You may have a moral right to, a social right to, but may not have a legal right to, and that's why many people get away with that, is to continue to do your best with whatever you have. And then at some stage, if you think that you're not feeling fulfilled and that you're not able to deliver as much and you're not able to realize your potential, take the call and do some tough decisions.
What about sexual harassment? What kind of advice would you give to a woman who's facing sexual harassment at work?
Look for early warning signs right away. Snap it, control it, stop it, prevent it at the beginning.
For Kiran Bedi, the only woman police officer to have reached such ranks, it wasn't too difficult to voice her opinion and let the world in general know too. But for most others, gender inequality, physical and psychological harassment is too much of a stigma to be vocal about. They'd much rather swallow their pride and keep it to themselves, or just pretend it never really happened.
I strongly feel about linked to this. It's a kind of a quote. It says the hottest corners of hell are reserved for those who, in times of crisis, maintain neutrality. So what we're saying is, if such an incident happens in an organization and if you choose to stay neutral and say, look, it doesn't affect me, so why should I step in, bother, say anything, then you are implicitly allowing it to happen.
I also know that most companies just treat this as, oh come on, it's some social rubbish, this woman doesn't know what she's talking about, we'll handle her, we will threaten her, we will do this, and that'll be the end of the matter. Every woman should strive to see the end of this matter, but everything is not in her hand. It's in the hands of the state, in the hands of the court, in the hands of the company, how they deal with this. But if she has the guts to be able to stand up to this and say, okay, here's my letter of resignation and I'm putting this on record.
It is a collective, relentless effort on the part of the victim and the organization that is necessary to ensure that justice is met, and fast. In a world where sexual harassment is still not an ancient evil, there's still much left to be done.
Sexual harassment in any form at the workplace is not going to disappear overnight. But for those women who have had the courage to stand up and fight, no matter what the consequence, it is indeed commendable. Only because their fight was not just against one person, but an entire system. Write to us at weekend@timesnow.tv and tell us what you think. That's all we have for you on this show. Thanks for watching.